Some people do it to find something, and for others, well, they're looking to forget. In honesty, I'm not sure what compelled me to walk. I think it's about the moments in between, the quiet stretches where you lose track of time and the conversations that spark unexpected connections. It's about the challenge, the beauty.
Now that is what I call a view.
Maybe the simplicity of putting one foot in front of the other. Last month, September 2024, I started walking from Porto Cathedral. It's an ancient pilgrimage route. I had a backpack, a tent and a simple mission. Follow these arrows 180 miles to Santiago de Compostela, which is in the north of Spain. I only had one rule, which was that I would not plan, act or worry as far as practically possible, but instead simply allow my trip
What was your name? Come on.
to unfold by its own accord. And this is how it went.
So, my journey started here, Porto Cathedral. This 12th century Romanesque fortress perched high above the city has long been a gathering point for pilgrims setting out on their journey north. And then there's me.
Buen Camino. Welcome to...
Right, hold on a minute. So why the hell are there just some random arrows that lead from Portugal to Spain, you might be asking?
Where the are we?
Well, it's actually to do with the Bible, more specifically St. James the Apostle. This chap, yeah. Legend holds that his followers transported his body from Jerusalem to Santiago,
Completed it, mate.
where his tomb was later rediscovered in the 9th century. This event led to the establishment of the Camino, which became the most important Christian pilgrimage route during the Middle Ages.
So, all I have to do is follow some arrows that are over there somewhere, and I will be taken from Porto, here, 130 miles, to Santiago de Compostela. Now, I need to go find these arrows. The most annoying thing about today, and probably the foreshadowing for the rest of my trip, is the fact that I got up this morning and it was raining. I didn't even know rain frequented itself in the Portuguese weather system. What a city, if you've never been here before. I mean, this is actually a pretty bad angle to come at it from, but it is an amazing place to visit if you ever get the chance. Now obviously you're probably thinking, well, you could just go on your phone and find the route because we're not in the 12th century anymore. But, here we go. That is a Camino shot, so we're on the right way.
The arrows guided me through the picturesque streets until I got to the river. From that point, I could just follow that instead.
Now, one of the reasons I chose the coastal route is because of its simplicity. I'm currently following this river all the way down to the sea, after which I literally just follow the coast right for about 60 miles or a good many days.
I must admit that walking out of Porto was pretty dreary, but luckily it did brighten up later on in the day.
Still, after 10 miles, not much more to go off than a lamppost with a bit of gold spray paint on it. I am confident we're heading the right way. That is what I'm talking about. That is why you choose the coastal route.
And from then on, as long as the sea was to the left of me, I knew I couldn't go too wrong.
If you wondered how I'm getting water, being a civilised European country, plenty of these drinking fountains everywhere, so you're never too far if you need to fill your bottle up.
After hiking for the best part of 5 hours, I decided it was time to find somewhere to camp for the night.
So I think I'm going to set my tent up down there for the night. I've got to be honest with you, I can't possibly think of anywhere that would be cooler to set your tent up. Just look at that. Well, there are two problems. I don't know whether the tide comes in this far. Obviously that would be an issue because it would mean I'd get washed away. The second one is, I don't know what the shtick is in Portugal. I don't know whether people are just chilled about it or it's best to hide it. Saying that, it is a camouflage tent, so I think I'm just going to do it.
So I went down to that little bit of beach and put my tent up, sat in it, and no one bothered me. So I just thought, well, that's all right then, I'll sleep here. So I did.
I think this is the freedom we're meant to enjoy as people, and this just really reconnects you with your soul. I'm sure of it. There's just no stress here. Oh, good night's sleep. What a view. to wake up to. I'm going to go find some coffee and a croissant.
So off I left, in my noble quest to find some baked goods and a cup of coffee. It was at this point I'd realised I probably should have worn some better shoes, but we'll come back to that later. We keep coming through these tiny little Portuguese fishing villages. You can see that really the main industry here isn't tourism or whatever else people do on the coast. It is genuinely fishing, as it will have been for the last however many thousand years. In amongst this, I found a local coffee shop and bakery and thought, that'll do. Yum. It was at this point I decided I was going to try out my Portuguese.
Desculpa. Bearing in mind, I know no Portuguese.
Disse que fez o caminho.
Disse que fez o caminho. Ora, vamos lá tentar a ver se conseguimos. E no telemóvel não tem óculos.
Well, that was awful. Won't be trying that one again. I spent most of the day on my own walking down these beautiful wooden walkways and coastal paths, but a problem was developing.
Obrigado.
One other than mild alcohol dependency. The problem in question had its origins in a Vietnamese shoe man and a second-hand pair of shoes. You see, several months prior, whilst in Vietnam, my friend had left me a lovely pair of Nike Janoskis, which I had then repaired by this chap for the steep price of £2. These shoes had done me well since that day, in fact being all I'd worn since. This sense of kinship with said shoes, and the reasoning that medieval pilgrims had for centuries completed the trek without mod-con walking shoes, led me to conclude that they would in fact be perfect for the journey.
They weren't. My feet are absolutely killing. So I've just gone barefoot.
Of course, predictably, this just made things a lot worse.
Hopefully that'll fix my foot.
Well, it didn't. It went from this to this.
And then I decided to do some emergency surgery, which just made it even more painful.
So I've been walking since about 7:30 this morning, and I checked my little guidebook thingy, and it was saying I've got to do like a 7-hour walk tomorrow. So I was like, nah, surely not. But yeah.
Oh well, you live and you learn.
With the extra hours that I put in at the end of the day, I did actually manage to get my allotted distance completed, so I was pretty pleased with that at least.
Oh yes. I think that'll do me for the night. Can you guess what we've got on the menu? Noodles, same as all of today and all of yesterday. But they're just so light and easy to carry and relatively carby. Even though I'm really starting to get fed up of noodles. When you're on a budget, I think they just are the best thing.
I left the sand dunes early in the morning to find the track again.
What I love about being here is how non-commercial it is. Everything is owned by local people. No McDonald's, there's very few shops, and the shops that are open for very long. You get the sense that people don't live and breathe just to buy things. Like, you need some bread, you go to the bakery. You're not going there because you want to shop, you're just going there because you want bread. Completely different culture.
I'd by this point grown tired of my feet hurting in the diktats of the Camino guide, so I set out with the mindset I'd just get as far as I got. Shortly after, I ended up walking with some other pilgrims. The slower pace and the profound conversations with people from all corners of the earth really made the experience much more than its constituent parts.
Just stopped to this little souvenir stamp place. I wanted to see if they got a shell. Oh wait, they do. This is exactly what I was looking for. Yeah, gonna get one of them. Just want to buy one of these.
But what's so special about scallop shells? Well, medieval pilgrims started collecting scallop shells as a sort of trophy showing they'd visited a sacred site. It distinguished pilgrims from ordinary travellers, allowing them to receive shelter and assistance, and to this day the shell remains a modern symbol of pilgrimage all over the world. We found a quiet beach to sit and enjoy lunch. Of course, being with Germans, the conversation swiftly moved on to beer. This is one of those times in life when I just sat there reflecting on how crazy everything was. Being with 5 complete strangers on a Portuguese beach, drinking some super bock, talking about beer.
They come with like 4 or 5 steins and they slap them down. You know, it's like...
Still following the signs.
Somehow, despite all odds, Danica and Mary had convinced me to carry on to Viana di Castello, which was the very place I decided was too far to get to.
Everybody says every day you don't decide who you're going to meet and where you're going to end up. You let the Camino decide. And I could have camped just back up there. Just looked at the map and there's this place. I've just got a feeling. I feel like I need to go there. Just letting the Camino decide tonight.
Down to a snail's pace, I was bound by circumstance. I had to get to the forest.
I've eaten my words from earlier, talking about letting the Camino decide.
It was only after reaching my destination I finally realised quite why I was so tired.
That was not the place I needed to get to today. Just discovered. It's 2 hours back, but I'm 3 hours ahead, which means I've only got to do 3 hours tomorrow. I don't think I've ever walked that far in my whole life. That was intense, man. And my reward is try and find somewhere to sleep in that vegetation over there. Really sort of fell in love with this thing today.
After a while waiting around to see if the others would catch up so I could say goodbye, I decided I'd rather get some kip. So I did. Apart from the rustlings of a stray badger at the early hours, I slept amazingly well and was greeted in the morning with what I can only describe as one of the most pleasant places I've ever been on planet Earth.
Wow, look at this place. It is endowed with beauty. It's just pristine. Honestly, it feels like you're in 1954.
But I had to leave, so off I went back to the coast.
The only problem I have found is water. Like, water's so fucking heavy, and really, because I'm cooking with water, I need to carry 4 litres all times, just in case I've got to stay wherever I need to stay. It just makes the bag that bit heavier. The first bit of the trek, there were like fountains, so you could fill up your bottles, but nah, no fountains along this bit.
Back on my own again, I was closing in on Spain and passing through a region famous for historic conflict in the north of Portugal. I found this 16th century ruin of a fort which apparently served as a reinforcement against the frequent pirate attacks which were a scourge on the Portuguese coastline in the 16th century.
Judging by the coastline and the multitude of rock formations, I don't know how the hell pirate ships could have got anywhere near the coast.
It had been 5 days since I'd had a shower or even been inside, but more importantly, my power bank was now only on 1 bar. This was going to be my last night in Portugal before making a run for the Spanish coast, but it also looked as if I'd run out of power before I got there. With this in mind, I hatched a detailed plan of action for the next morning.
Literally, I'm going to get up at 7 and just fucking head that way. Big distances to go. Nothing for us in the £6 Amazon tent. I'm not sure how long this is going to last. As long as it's got like 10 more days in it.
Seeking refuge from the wind under one of the coastal walkways, in by far the most isolated spot I'd camped at so far, I could only hope that my GoPro battery lasted. It didn't. So you now join me, 24 hours, a hostel, a lovely Portuguese meal, 1 too many red wines and a super bock later, about to get into a taxi that the chap at the hostel had assured me would take me to Spain. There was, however, one problem. I was here, and Spain is there. So, whatever way you look at it, I was going to have to get a boat.
Just getting in this little mad taxi thing.
And as we've already established, with Portuguese not being my forte, shall we say, I wasn't exactly sure where I was going or with who.
You know, drives quickly. Like a race. Yeah? Hello. What was your name? Juan. What's your name?
Laura.
After confirming with these two, we were in fact on the way to a speedboat, but I hadn't paid for anything, so I was just a bit confused.
Me?
Oh.
If you live in Colombia, it's a long way away from Spain.
No, I'm from Colombia, but I live in Spain.
Oh, okay. Off to Spain on the other side.
So, as far as I can tell, this boss man at the hostel just got us in a minivan and took us to the sea. And now there was another boss man just telling me to get in a boat and he was going to take me to Spain. So I was like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that.
Hopefully we don't sink.
It's a good way.
I think we're just going to ram into the coast by the looks of it. Oh yeah.
Okay, take out life jacket out, please.
Bosh, just like that, I'd crossed an international border. Happy days.
Well, that's him gone. Apparently it just said go left. I haven't paid, so I don't know what happens now.
So like the bloke said, I just went left.
Let's suppose that you were able every night to dream any dream you wanted to dream. And that you could, for example, have the power within one night to dream 75 years of time. Or any length of time you wanted to have. And you would naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. You would have every kind of pleasure you could conceive. And after several nights of 75 years of total pleasure each, you would say, well, that was pretty great. But now let's have a surprise.
As if by magic, once in Spain the terrain was different, as well as the weather. It was becoming much cooler as I journeyed north. It always amazes me how in Europe, where you can walk across a national border, how different places really can feel either side of a line drawn on a map.
It's really remote here. I've chosen not to take the official Camino path and just walk along the coast and just feel quite isolated. But I suppose that's sort of the beauty. That's why you come and do the Camino. You just get miles and miles of walking with that scenery and just you and your thoughts. What a beautiful place in the world. I've been at this nearly a week now, woken up in this little Spanish town with a little Spanish breakfast, and I couldn't find anywhere to camp because it's just farmers' fields there, and I've just got an albergue. I don't want to do that again tonight. I don't want to fall into the bourgeois ways.
Early on in the morning, I met this 86-year-old Spanish chap that basically told me his whole life story and wanted to take me for lunch, an offer I really regret declining now, and as you guessed it, I did some walking. In fact, I went from here to here, all the way to here.
That there, that is where I want to camp tonight.
I even persuaded 2 Americans to do some filming for me, and while that's not really relevant, I said I'd add them to the film anyway, so they can be famous when I've got millions of subscribers.
That over there is where we were earlier. We've made it to this little peninsula. I think we're just going to find a little spot around the back here.
Well, doesn't that look lovely? That's exactly what I thought. So I found a fuck off stick to make me look mysterious and wandered around this little peninsula for about 2 hours, finding the perfect spot to set up for the night.
It's funny, I was just thinking about coming sort of to the other end of my trip now. When I've been camping outside for any period of time, it weirdly takes me a while to adapt to sleeping inside all the time. It feels quite a bit weird, a bit claustrophobic, a bit sterile.
One of the most remarkable things about this region is its authenticity. Unlike some of Spain's more famous tourist destinations, Glacier remains a place of quiet charm where life moves at a much slower pace. The locals are all incredibly hospitable, always ready with a smile or a kind word. And then there's the coastline. Although the Camino mostly winds through inland Glacier on this part of the trip, taking a detour to the Atlantic coast is well worth it. The cliffs and the hidden beaches of the Costa del Morte are hauntingly beautiful, a stark contrast to the rolling farmland and dense forests along the other parts of the Pilgrim Trail. However, it must be said, this idyllic setting was, it's fair to say, juxtaposed to my accommodation for the next night.
So the next night I got to Vigo, which is this huge coastal city. Obviously I couldn't find anywhere to camp around here, apart from a few park benches, but I'm not going to lie, it was a bit sketch. So I didn't fancy sleeping in the city, found the cheapest hotel I could, and let's just say it was a little bit suspicious.
This is some weird stuff. Checked into this hotel in the middle of Spain, and I'm not going to lie, it's a pretty sus place in general. Someone messaged me and was like, you checked in online. I was like, that's weird. They give you this code, you sign in yourself. There's literally no one here. There's just nothing. I haven't seen another soul, I haven't heard another person. Then I'm the only person in this place. I'll show you my room, because there's literally none of the beds are made or anything. So like, what are these things? I've never stayed in a place like this before.
However, after walking into the old town about 20 minutes from the hotel, my perspectives on this place were completely changed.
Completely unexpected.
The ancient part of the city was full of tiny bars and restaurants, all crammed together in the ancient streets. This all came together to create an awesome atmosphere.
So it was day 9. That meant I got about 50 miles left from Vigo to Santiago. Got that little dotted line there.
Right. Time to get back on this trail.
First thing on, I saw a bagpipe player, something I didn't even know they had in Spain, to be fair.
Comes the first little arrow of the day.
I did lots of walking, as usual, got bullied over a spot of lunch, and then proceeded to walk far too far into the countryside for this late in the afternoon.
Whoa. It's a bit remote.
So I stopped off at a water fountain that the locals use.
These little water fountains, you see them everywhere, and a lot of the locals come and fill the bottles up because they still don't trust the tap water.
Even though I'd chosen a month later on in the year to avoid the hottest of the Spanish summer, today I can confirm it was hot. But anyway, I had an important decision to make.
So we're now at the point where if I go this way, it takes me like along the river where James the Great, one of the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ's body, was brought to Spain. And you follow the exact route that his body took to Santiago de Compostela, where the cathedral was built, because that's where he was buried. Or you can go this way, which is quicker and shorter. You don't see all this cool shit. I think I'm going to go with a shorter route.
Which is exactly what I did, until I had to walk across this tree, which was fun.
This is cool. It's like I'm in the Amazonian rainforest or something. So here we are. This is the abode for tonight. Probably go for a little wash in there. I'll see you in the morning.
Here you can see me the next morning, putting my socks on. Nice. And I had a cafe con leche, that you can see here. And then, after walking through vineyards for a day, I just couldn't help myself.
So along this stretch of the route, there's loads of vineyards, obviously growing grapes for red wine. Now it would be rude of me, I suppose, to sample one or two of these fresh Spanish wine grapes. That's so nice.
With my clothes not having been properly washed for well over 5 days, tonight I was simply gonna have to find a hostel. My priorities, however, are easily shifted.
This beautiful beer. Do you mind being in my YouTube video?
Sure.
I hadn't been at the hostel long before Todd offered to buy me a beer, which, of course, I couldn't refuse.
Look at that. What do you think?
It's changed my life.
He also taught me that Americans can, in fact, do sarcasm. So cheers, Todd, and thanks for buying everyone's meal as well.
Forever.
And just eat not everything, you know, you don't eat this. You just eat this.
At this hostel, I inadvertently caught up with a few people I'd met along the way, so we all decided to go out for a great big dinner. Even got to try padron pepper for the first time. And it's moments like these that is the reason why I just love travelling. What is going on here? We had an amazing time, and like I've said before, I just couldn't believe how cheap the beer and the food is. And just like that, it was my final day on the Camino.
So there's probably the 30th arrow of the day.
In honesty, today was a bastard. But that was just fine. It'd been 11 or 12 something days, the same amount of nights, 180 something miles, and a few too many tapas. But contrary to what one might think, I wasn't tired, nor was anybody around me. Things just seem to make sense when you're on the trail. And while a party was happy you're closing in on the destination, I would say that the greater sense for most is sadness at the journey coming to an end.